Mr. and Mrs. Educator, a lot of factor of unfairness is being upheld by the current system of scholarship granting. We believe that scholarship should be upholding fairness principle, and that is why we support the motions. In the current status quo, the system of scholarship granting is by having tests on academic result and many other qualifications. We think that this is not the great metrics to accept a scholarship because it is still unfair. Why is it unfair? Because the most qualification on this metric is on how great the academic result or the academic score of a person is. This academic score is very easy to get manipulated, and this academic score will harm will harm the underprivileged student who have limited access to a great formal educations. We want a world where scholarship is granted with the metrics of financial necessity of a person. So we will be able to reach more people who previously is limited in educations. We will be able to create more access. And in our mechanism, the first one that we will create a requirement which include, first one is Kartu Indonesia Pintar, and the second one is approve if he has access to enough educations or not. And secondly, we will do a survey to consider the reality of his or her economical necessity. And the third one is we will adjust the amount of scholarship proportionally to their economical condition, to their financial necessity. And the fourth one, that we will send them to a school with good facility and provide his life with his life necessity in that area. That is why. And this debate should talk about how can we benefit students by granting them more access to educations, and on how will this scholarship with this policy will be more and effectively beneficial to help underprivileged students and gather more participants in educations. And as our goal, we want to give underprivileged students more access to education, and scholarship is one of the way, in order to prepare them for a better future in the future workforce world. And then coming up to my first argument on why is this justifiable. Mr. and Mrs. Educator, in the current status quo, social gap between privileged student and underprivileged student is really significant. We have a lot of students who have access to go to good school, international school, and also even good tuition. This condition is beneficial for them to get scholarship, because the current requirement for a scholarship is academic test result. These privileged people are more likely to succeed in achieving the scholarship. If this happens continuously for the future, this privileged student will be more prepared for their future workforce world and are more likely to succeed, which is good. But in another case, we have a lot more students in our nation that are underprivileged, who live in poverty, who live in a remote area with limited education access. And the current status quo will be harming them because they are not likely to be able to get scholarships. Why? Because their capacity is limited even in their early educations. What will likely to happen for their future is they will quit school and focus on working and earning money in such an early age. This is not what we want in the proposition side of the house. But then, why is it important to help the underprivileged student? Ladies and gentlemen, we have to know that the future of our nation is in the hand of younger generation. The existence of us today is to prepare our younger generations to be able to develop our nation in the future. That is why the existence of a great education should be great inside a country. And the problem is, in order to be able to give them more access to later be used in developing our nations, underprivileged student is not getting that, because they are keep thinking on quitting school because they think that they cannot afford it, and they are limited in access towards great educations because they live in poverty, and their capability will not be as beneficial as the capability of the privileged student. That is really harming for our nation's future. Why? Because people like this will end up with you doing a physical job that maybe also help the nation's future but are not appreciated well. More people is not likely to be able to escape poverty, and if that happens, more young generations will not be able to contribute uh, a big part in the future of our nation's development. That is why it is totally justifiable to grant a scholarship based on a financial necessity. But then, why shouldn't we grant scholarship for students with great academic achievement? Ladies and gentlemen, we think it is not really necessary compared to our case because their capability is enough to afford in a good education access. They are more likely to get a good school, tuitions, and in some case, they are more privileged that they are able to access international school. They can afford it. That is why we think it is enough for them to be able to succeed and continue to higher level of education in the future. This will not be harmful for them. That is the reason on why we think it is totally justifiable to grant scholarship only based on financial necessity. But then, my second argument is on what is the benefit of this policy. Ladies and gentlemen, there's two benefits. The first one is for our nations. If a nation is able to create more and wider access to educations to their younger generations, one simple outcome is the existence of educated generations. With their existence, the development of a nation is more likely to succeed. Why is it more likely to succeed? With more educated peoples, it will be easier to create institutions in order to develop nations, such as research center and etc. This is definitely going to help people, to help country on earning informations and more. And another case is if a country economical condition is descending, more people will be likely to be able to find another solutions because they are educated. And that is why a nation will be benefited by by existence of educated generations. But current status quo is not enough. More people should be granted access, and that is why we want to enact this policy. And for students, people will be more likely to succeed in the future if our policy is enacted. In the current status quo, many people live in poverty because they were not prepared with early educations. This shows how much people have to struggle in the future if they have less access to formal educations. And with this policy that we create, more people will be able to escape poverty since in the early time they able to earn more access. In the future, people will be more prepared with enough educations. That is the benefit for both nation and young generations, and that is why we are so proud to propose these motions. Thank you.